Raise your horns high and let your spirit flow. It's the classic metal wrap-up show. Feel the rush, let the loudness grow. It's the classic metal wrap-up show.
Yeah, there we go. So we have Alan, but maybe we should introduce ourselves. I mean, we all know who he is, but maybe you guys should introduce yourselves. I guess we'll start with Joe.
Sure.
It looks like the damn Brady Bunch on my screen, doesn't it?
It
I mean,
does.
who's Alice? But go
All right.
ahead, introduce yourself. We know who you are, but Alan may not know who you are, so go for it.
Sure. I am Metal Joe Miller with Defenders of the Faith heavy metal webzine coming in from Chicago.
And check out Defenders of the Faith.
Pleasure to meet you, Alan.
How's the weather in Chicago? Are you cold? You got snow?
Oh, it's today. It's cold and rainy. No snow yet, but that's supposed to come later tonight.
I don't envy you.
Yeah, I don't envy me, man. It's winter here is never fun, but we persist nevertheless.
Right. And
The summer is in Chicago.
The summers, they can be gnarly too, man. It could be, one day it'll be nice and mild, and the next day it'll be 200 degrees out or 120 really with heat index. It's ridiculous, but that's the Midwest for you, as I'm sure you know.
300 degrees of humidity.
right.
Exactly.
And then who's next?
Yeah, who is next?
Kendall, introduce yourself.
Kendall.
Hello, Alan and CMS Wrap Up Show world. My name is Kendall Peters, and my claim to fame was college radio, which became internet radio.
Yeah.
And I hail from Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Pennsylvania.
You're in Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Yeah, I loved college radio back in the day. In fact, one of the first times I ever sat in a radio booth or radio studio was WTUL. Do you know where that is?
No, but is it on the East Coast?
South Coast, darling. It's New Orleans, Tulane.
Okay.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. And you almost consider the early days of KNAC to be almost like college radio because they didn't have much power and basically didn't get much out of Long Beach further than Long Beach.
That's true, Alan, because having visited Southern California, I could be at like a relative's place and not get a reception, go down like half a block, and I would pick up the KNAC signal. So it was really just as you said.
Well, the thing about KNAC, and I remember the morning very well, I turned up at the studio and there was a friend of mine sitting outside the door, which was locked. He'd driven over just to tell me, you've got to listen to this. And he turned on his car radio and there was a whole bunch of great rock and roll. And it was content that made them explode, not power in the antenna.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that morning really well.
Yeah. And then we got Andrew.
Right, which I sat in with Alan.
Yeah, he sat in with us. And then Evil, Evil. So he asks a lot of probing questions. And I think I don't know if you overheard, I think he was already drafting a list of probing questions. But, I think what we could do, because the last time, well, I think I spoke with you 2 or 3 times on Zoom calls, but one was for this particular CMS wrap up, but the book. So the book was coming out and then there was some delays. What's happening with the book and who is, I guess, holding that thing back?
This may answer your question. Axel harassed Mick Wall. Have you ever heard of Mick Wall?
Yes, he's awesome. Yeah.
From my point of view, I don't like rock and roll books as a whole.
Hmm.
Mick Wall is the only rock and roll writer I can actually sit down with a book and read, and obviously talked to him extensively over the years. It's quite funny, actually. Mick is somebody I'm very, very fond of, apart from appreciating his skill as a writer. The very first time I met Mick was at the first GNR gig in Manchester, and he was shit-faced. He was so fucking drunk, he was slurring his words, and I ripped him a new one right there and then. And you do not come in this condition to see one of my acts ever. And it was the start of a beautiful friendship.
Nice. So it's Axel that's what's he taking
Yeah, sorry.
what's the issue? Like I mean after reading the book, I don't see anything really embarrassing in there.
You don't see anything, and pretty much everybody knows from the internet anyway. You know, it's just my observation of certain events that are well known and from my perspective. But what I was going to say while I was talking about Mick Wall, when Axel found out that Mick was going to write his Axel book, he invited Mick down to, I believe if I remember correctly, the Sunset Marquee, the bar there, and told him he didn't care if he wrote something nice or something bad, but if he wrote anything at all, he was going to, and I quote, fucking kill him. So Axel has a toxicity with him that he almost requires contention to function. I mean, look at his stage persona, look at the content of an awful lot of the songs, look at so many stories that come out of contention that was unnecessary. It's part of his psyche. So, I mean, he threatened Mick and he went after his publisher as well. So, I'm not surprised that he went after my publisher. Now, there isn't a huge amount of money to be made in books these days. It's not the market it was, say, 10, 20 years ago. So publishers tend to be a bit squeamish if individuals who have the capacity to hire very expensive lawyers start harassing them. And that's what, we were a week off the book coming out, and Axel had his legal dogs start harassing my publisher. And eventually what I decided to do was to try and protect my publisher and keep them out of the firing line. I filed suit against Axel for being Axel, harassing my publisher, all his negativity and so on and so forth. He's an unfortunate personality. He's not a gentleman. He never ever said thank you. And let's get a little bit of context there. No one wanted to work with him. They could not get management at all. I was their last chance for management. Did he ever say thank you? From going, from the gutters at the back of Guitar Centre and being deposited at Wembley Stadium, you think somebody might have had the class to go, okay, Niv, you did a pretty good job. Thank you. Did he ever have the class to do that? No. Now, as far as the others are concerned, I've got about a dozen emails from Slash where I sent him stuff to read. And all his emails are encouraging. Love the way you write. set the record straight, etc., etc., etc. When's the book coming out? So we've got a clear understanding of where the problem is.
Well,
Right.
I think he answered my question right there, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't think he heard it. I don't know if anybody else has another question for Alan while we have him here and before we get rolling with some of this other chit chat that we're going to have.
No,
No.
I
No.
don't think so.
Come on, Evil, what you got on your fucking mind, mate?
He's got he has some other questions. He just doesn't
Well,
want
I
to
mean, that you essentially answer all of it without even. My question was: is it the whole team of GNR, or is it Axel and his lawyers trying to screw everyone around and not be able to for you to release your product? And my suspicion was that because of your relationship with Slash, it was Axel, not the rest of the whole unit as a band. And but we do know, as you know, Alan, I was saying sometimes, like with guys like Gene Simmons, he has a whole team of lawyers who just file cease and desist, don't do this, don't do that automatically. How many of those he's even aware of is probably not, only a small percentage. The ones that are going to cause actual legal issue, they'll come to him and say, hey, Gene, we got a problem here. But if they just file letters because he thinks there's a claim or doesn't want them to use a picture or kiss this or that or whatever. And I've seen interviews where it was very clear that Gene was not aware sometimes that they had filed these things against people and then realized that's kind of stupid. Why are we doing that? So I was just curious if it was a band of lawyers is just out doing this in turn for the unit, or if it was personal with Axel. I suspected in your case because you're the ex-manager. It's personal. So
Yeah, and for some reason or other, let me start out this way, Evil. What we have here is failure to appreciate. You'd think that there would be some part of Axel that even if our personalities were not that empathetic, and very definitely, if I'm in a bad mood, I can make a very strong case that we got success in spite of Axel and his behavior, not because of, where was I going with this? But even if you take that into consideration, you'd think that somebody who's sitting on his mansion out in Malibu, that he might just sit there and go, and Niv contributed well to my life. Maybe I should just leave him alone, let him put his little book out, let it do what it's going to do, and then I'll put my book out and I'll complain about everybody. You know, he's just not a happy person.
Right.
Obviously, it's unavoidable that you have to have some sort of thought in hindsight to comprehend and understand. And I do know that he had a really, really tough childhood, as he's told it to various people. But I don't know how you feel about this, but I have a perspective that we give grace to the fact that a human brain does not fully develop until the age 25. So my thought is, okay, you've got shit to think about and deal with. Your brain's not fully functional. You don't have that much experience. But by the time you're 30 fucking years old, it's on you. All right, deal with your past. Do not let the past own you, and be the better you from the age of 30 on. So between the ages of actually 25 and 30, I think it's fair enough. You can piss and moan and complain. Things are rough. I have issues. But by the time you're 30, you should have some sort of sense of control of that.
Right. Okay.
and he doesn't, because the video of him throwing the microphone at the bass drum of 6 months ago clearly shows the guy's out of control still. He doesn't know. So yeah.
There
He
you go.
hasn't coped at all, apparently. All those millions of dollars and can't seem to find the therapist qualified to sort out the mental mess that's going on inside.
Right.
But, I suspected these things long ago when I was a teen watching the videos and him swimming with dolphins, and I realized this motherfucker's on some other trip that I ain't on, man.
Evil. I'm still trying to figure that out. I still don't know what the point of the big old boat and the dolphins win. But bear in mind, Evil, there are two quotes that open my book and provide the title to the book. I stole from the Bard, from Shakespeare. That most of life is sound and fury that means nothing. And we all strut the stage with our self-importance, and at the end of the day, it's not very consequential. Then I put my own quote, that rock and roll is God's occupation for the unemployable. So to be a front man in a band, to even want to be making a living in a band, to wanting to be involved in that, you're a little bit off some way or another. You're not there to be an accountant, and you're not there to be a lawyer.
Yeah. I just know that at that point I looked at it and was like, I can see this guy swimming with dolphins, but I'd rather rewind back to Paradise City because that's the video that got me hooked on him, and that's the band that I want to see. This guy's out here, I don't know where he's at, and Izzy's gone, he's missing, and this is not working, and And don't get me wrong, I have open ears. There's some songs there. The guy can write some songs, and he can sing, but the heart of the matter, the edge. Everything that made it kind of dangerous left, in my opinion, as soon as Izzy heads out the door. So that's just
Why do people call bands dangerous? It's kind of absurd, isn't it? They're cosseted, spoiled individuals who are put into luxurious buses and taken to great hotels and so on and so forth. A dangerous individual is somebody who comes out of the shadows when you're in the wrong part of town and they've got a fucking firearm under their coat. That's dangerous, all right? Bands aren't dangerous unless you consider some bands sometimes stimulate people to thought and stimulate them to figure things out. And that's a danger to that person because they can't deal with figuring things out. Bands aren't dangerous.
No, but you have to put this back in the perspective, though. That's from you in your mind as a manager. For me, I'm a 13-year-old kid, and I've been fed poison, and I've been fed these bands that are fucking milk toast and fucking glam shit. And I'm at the record store at Tower Records in 1987, 88, and I'm trying to talk my parents into buying this Appetite for Destruction for me to take home, even though my dad, who's watched Dirty Harry, Deadpool, has a suspicion of what's going on with these guys. And what I'm going to tell you, Alan, is when they look at the picture and they see Slash with a bottle of whiskey and the other guys looking the way they were, my dad said, they're on fucking smack, and I don't know if I want you to listen to this. That felt dangerous to me. I was like, holy shit, these guys aren't like Bret Michaels who's dancing around having a good time. This motherfucker might steal your wallet, your bottle of booze, and jack your car on his way to the next rehearsal. That felt dangerous to me. It might have been image, but that's the way it was portrayed because we didn't have the internet. All we had was an album cover and a back jacket, maybe a poster at the Tower Records, and maybe what Metal Edge or Rip or Kerrang or whatever I can get my hands on at the newsstand at Tower had for that month told me about them. And as you know, Alan, to all of those reporters, Axl was dangerous. So was Slash. They all looked like they were the guys coming out of that alley in LA, not off the front of the marquee of the whatever club like the Pretty Boys were. So to me, that's how I imagine it. Not that they were actually really, I mean, we all know living in Malibu right now with Beta probably isn't exactly hard living. So
I'll acknowledge you taking me to task there because obviously, and I'm surprised you didn't throw it into that response. Jack Russell was genuinely dangerous.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is a guy who did time because he shot somebody in a fucked up drug robbery. I mean, the whole thing is so comical in a way, apart from the woman getting shot. He's going into the house with a gun, and he says, "Where's the coke? Where's the coke?" And the maid there is going, "It's in the fridge. Get a drink in the fridge." Literally, that was her response. It's in the fridge.
God.
Yeah. So, I mean, even in a disastrous moment like that, there's a bit of twisted comedy to it.
Oh man.
But yeah, that's far more. But to a kid like me, I didn't know. To me, Jack Russell was just a rock me video, which seemed pretty. Yeah, he's just singing to a chick and he wants to get laid. It just seemed far more, regular. I don't know, mainstream. And my mom might let me listen to that a little easier than "It's So Easy." When I got to that second song, that was really just getting hard to explain what we're talking about here, because there's some lyrics here that my parents go, "What the hell is they saying?" So,
All right, Evil, I've got to throw a question at you.
mm-hmm.
What do you think about his treatment and video of his sweet child?
Of his sweet child and sweet child of mine.
What do you think about the way that Axel treated his sweet child in the "It's So Easy" video?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So, but at that time, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think the "It's So Easy" video was out there for us at that time. Wasn't that banned?
Yeah, I think it was banned.
No, it wasn't banned.
Just wasn't played.
I shelved it. I went into what I didn't know about the footage with Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
He did that on the QT with Nigel Dick, and Nigel fucking Dick didn't tell me about it either, because he knew I wouldn't be happy. But once he showed me the footage, I went straight over to Geffen and I said, "We can call it being overexposed if you want, but we're not putting that out, because I could only see that exploding in the band's face. And what Axel was indulging in there was something about him and Aaron and what he wanted to do. And it fell upon me to raise an eyebrow and go, well, if you want to do that shit, go and do that shit and keep those videos in your own home. But this does not represent the band well. It's going to be damaging to the band. And there are 4 other people who are involved in this. If you were doing a solo career, I'd still say, I don't think that's a very good idea, Axel.
Yeah.
But as a member of a 5-piece band, that was not the thing to have happen at that point. So it got shelved. So what does he do? And I think it's just out of spite. He pulls that footage out and re-edits it and puts it out in public. I would love to have been a fly on the wall to hear the conversation between Aaron and Axel, where she went ahead and said, yeah, I'm fine with that now. When they were getting divorced, she had her lawyers trying to find that footage to throw it in his face in the divorce case. As it was, we ended up with the People cover, People magazine cover, screaming headline, "Battered Beauties." And there's a picture of Stephanie Seymour, Aaron Everly, and Axel. I mean, 50% of your following approximately is female. How do they feel about that?
Right.
You guys got questions?
I have a
Oh,
question, actually.
ooh.
Yeah. I have one question that's been brewing on my mind as we're regaling the ghost of Axl Rose's past. And this is a story I've actually been told firsthand from a guy who was there. So, Alan, I guess you'd be the guy to ask. So this incident took place in San Antonio, 1987 or 8, I believe. And it was the tour when Guns N' Roses was opening for Ace Frehley and Y&T briefly. And the story I was told by my friend who was there, his sister was writing for a zine, and they had never heard of Guns N' Roses, or the album had just come out. It was early on, obviously. And I guess the story that he told me was GNR came out, played 3, 4 songs maybe, and at one point Axel had it with the crowd who were quote unquote glam wimps, etc. Started talking shit, and the story I was told was he took his mic stand and bashed some dude's face in with the stand and walked off stage. And that was GNR's set. And then they dropped off the tour not long after that. Is there any recollection of this incident whatsoever?
No, it's just one of many. I mean, how many times did you think I got a phone call from Goldstein, the tour manager? And usually my first question was, has he been arrested? And if Doug said no, I'd say, then why aren't you on the bus, and why isn't the bus headed out of town fast? You know, there were plenty of moments when one was looking to mitigate consequence,
Hmm.
to minimize the impact on the whole and on the potential of the future. There's a lot of housekeeping. But, you know, you dealt with that because this was a band with a certain character and this was a band with a certain attitude. And you'd made a commitment in 1986 that, you know what, this may be worthwhile dealing with, because it's not a manufactured band. It certainly, thank God, isn't a fucking Poison.
Yeah.
I mean, sufficient comment. David Geffen tried to put me with Bon Jovi after he fired Doc. And for me, it was like, thanks, but no thanks. What I like to do is deal with things that I think have a certain degree of artistry to them. And I'm not interested in working with entertainers. And for me, Bon Jovi was superficial entertainment. It wasn't stimulating. When you're trying to clearly express why you thought it was worthwhile putting your energy with this particular band, and in context, my then wife had just given birth to my first child, and those of you who are parents may well remember walking out of the hospital after just seeing the child born, fucking terrified by the idea that you have to be responsible for another life for 18 years. And you're starting to think, you know, maybe I should stop fucking around with these rock and roll bands and get a real job that's got a consistent income and start taking care of a family. But there was sufficient content and certainly plenty of attitude with GNR that I could rationalize that they could stand for the worth of every soul, even those of urchins from under the street. And that, I think, is valuable. They could also represent the idea that it is possible to avoid a humdrum life. And I'm looking at all the faces here, and I think we've all done that in one way or another. Wanted to avoid the humdrum, the ordinary, the dispiriting, the aspects of life that are just, why the fuck are we doing this? Are we all just tax slaves here? What is the point and purpose of the way this fucking society works? I mean, in that magic moment of a gig where you form a temporary society within a large room, part of what a rock and roll band that's worth its salt is doing is representing the fact that you can escape, that you can get out, that you can break away, that you can chase a dream and get to somewhere that's a happier place. You know, and then you get older and you realize that happiness, more often than not, is something that you see in the rear view mirror.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that was a part of my commitment to that band in 1986. I think you're worth it. And bear in mind, the fucking demos that I got from Geffen, remember that radio then was Journey, Bad Company, etc., etc. And I'm listening to the demos and I'm going, oh, we'll fit right on in. Because what I'm hearing has got more of a punk vibe than
Right.
anything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I knew from the get-go that in part of my thinking and strategizing, trying to get this band off square one and along in the game, was it's not going to be done by radio. And if you look back, that first 6 months the record was out, 0 airplay.
Mhm.
They did not want to touch us. They thought we were the vanguard of the demons from hell, or whatever they thought. But radio wouldn't touch us in the first 6 months. And I knew that to keep them in the game and to keep them moving, I had to try and get them competent enough to tour and keep touring, because that's the way we were going to get a following, was going out there and playing live. So, yeah, no, I've forgotten where my train of thought was going there, but it was not going to be a predictable formula of putting the band together, doing the video, doing the radio, etc., etc., etc. That band had to go out there and prove it live, which they did. And for me, the apex of the band, both being involved and then uninvolved, I think their apex was when they were opening for Aerosmith.
Mhm.
It was stunning, to the point I felt sorry for Aerosmith having to try and go out there and play after GNR. You'd be in the venue and everybody would be on their fucking seats, standing on their seats. The energy and the interest was intense, really intense. And I mean, think about that for a moment. You're opening for Aerosmith. That scared the fucking living daylights out of Axl. He wanted me to pull him off the tour and cancel it. He did not want to deal with that. You have a beautiful cat in your background there, Andrew.
Oh, thank you.
I'm very, very fond of cats. I like their independence.
Yes, I got 3 of them running around here. So.
Awesome. I have 2 that are inside and thoroughly spoiled to the level that if I leave the front door open, not interested, will not. And I have a stray that comes from somewhere around here 3 times a day for me to feed it. It took 2 years for it to let it touch me. Let me touch it. It was,
Yeah.
every time I tried to pat it on the head or something. But after a couple of years, it settled down, and yeah, you can tickle my head for me.
Yeah. You've earned the privilege.
Yeah.
But
You've been them enough.
that for me was the spiritual essence of the Guns N' Roses that I worked with. Was a sense that every individual has their worth. And the other thing is that, in terms of personality, lots of people have lots of different points of view about Axl. But one thing that we can all agree on is he had this fucking amazing voice that to me was the voice of the outlaw. It's the voice of Billy the Kid. It really is. And it makes me smile when I think that his name is actually Bill Bailey. Because Bill has the voice of an outlaw. He really does.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, I know that Kendall and Andrew are Dokken and Great White fans, and this
Right.
man also has a lot of information regarding Don Dokken and Great White. If you guys have any questions regarding that.
I mean, I
So
was actually
Kendall,
well, Kendall is a mutual friend of, like, you have the mutual friend of Don with Kendall that she's spent time with him, and I met him once briefly. He was nice enough, but I've also noticed
we're
some.
talking about Don here.
Yes.
First off, you've got to, before you start,
Mhm.
there are two Don Dawkins.
Yeah.
There's the one who thinks he has to behave in a certain way as a rock star and presents himself in that fashion and manner when he's in rock star mode. And there is the guy that I love dearly, who's domestic Don, who, if you live with, is just a wonderful person to live with and a lot of fun to live with.
This is starting to answer my question, because I was going to say, did you notice? So then, what you're telling me is there is a bit of a shtick that he has to be the public rock star.
Totally. I mean, it's self-evident and obvious. And as much as I am an admirer of Cliff and Peter, I think that they adversely contributed to the shtickism because they told him he had to take his guitar off and be a frontman. All right, so when I first meet Don, he's 30 years old, okay? Not necessarily a spring chicken and not somebody that you can maybe say train or help or move through a change of how they present themselves. Now, he's a very decent guitar player, and when you see him perform with a guitar, he's much better at the front of a band. But without the guitar, to me, he's totally fucking lost. He is not a natural frontman. I mean, just compare him with Jack Russell.
Right.
Jack was a tremendous performer and very good at commanding a stage. Whereas Don feels awkward without a guitar.
And it shows.
Yeah.
It shows.
Yeah. And Cliff and Peter made a mistake there. And another one, you know, and this is something that a lot of people probably start throwing cans at the screen. I'm not a George Lynch fan. I think there could have been a much better player in that band. There was actually an evening when Don called me up and said, listen, there's this kid I wanted to get into the band. Come with me, we'll have a dinner at Denny's, and I want you to talk up your independent label so as he thinks something's going on. I said, sure, let's go. So he sat down with this kid who was very shy, seemed to have difficulty ordering off the menu. I mean, he was a little wet behind the ears. He was young. And for some reason, it didn't work out. So Warren DeMartini ends up in Rat instead of Dawkins. And as far as Dawkins, the band goes, I mean, you know, if I've got my radio on the truck and a Dawkins song comes on, because I'm old and grumpy, and being old and grumpy, I'm allowed to say what the fuck I want, when the fuck I want to. And I'm listening to a Don song, and Lynch starts playing a solo, and I go, what the fuck is that? He's ego tripping. It's not part of the song. He's not playing for the song. And he's a difficult personality to have around. I don't know if you've ever seen the video. I think the song was called Mirror, Mirror.
Yep, from Up from the Ashes. It's actually my favorite album.
Oh, my favorite Dawkins band. Oh my God. If that band had been formed 2 years earlier, should have set radio and gigs on fire. That was a good band.
Yeah.
And it was cohesive. Have you
And
ever watched the footage from Monsters of Rock?
yes,
Was that 88 or 89?
88. Yeah, summer, fall.
Metallica,
Yeah.
Scorps,
Scorpions, Van
Van
Halen,
Halen,
yeah.
Metallica. And think about this. They're both managed by the same management. But Cliff and Peter are putting Dawkins on after Metallica. And if you watch the footage, you can see that Dawkins is struggling with that audience every fucking time. I mean, who in their right mind puts a band that you're dealing with on after Metallica? It's fucking craziness. How the hell are they going to compete or take the energy that Metallica have generated and then come on and sing, you know, In My Dreams? Ain't gonna fucking happen, you know? So that was something else where it didn't help Don in how he presented himself live. You know, so really good songwriter, really good in the studio, a really good housemate.
Oh, I'll chime in here with that. Because you brought something to think about when you mentioned how you think George didn't really fit well with the Dawkins songs. It made me think of the Dawkins track from the EP Day After Day, from I guess around 79. Would you know, like I always assumed that Don played all the guitars on that. And I don't know if you would know that, but it was just it seemingly in what you said that George didn't fit. Like that is a track where if Don was playing the guitars, how that flowed with the song the whole time. Do you know anything about that track, Alan?
No Don Dawkins in my life, no Alan Niven producer. I learnt most of what I know from Don, being in the studio with him. Tremendous amount from him. And one of the things that I learned from him was make the effort to make sure that solos and songs speak to the song itself, its atmosphere, and its melody construction. And I think you can see that in Kendall's playing back in the day, that he would be within the song. And there would be some sort of sense of conversation between him and Jack and the melodies that Jack is singing. When he did his solo record, I used to drive past his house on my way home of an evening or a night. And time and again, I'd stop by his house, poke my head in and see how he was doing with the songwriting for his solo record. And he'd obviously played everything on the demos. And I'd sit down and I'd listen and I'd go, "You're good. This is a good song. Sounds great. Feels great." And I was expecting his solo record to do really well, but my observation of that was when he got into the studio as a solo artist, I think he began to overthink things. And he spent too much time on it. And there wasn't somebody in the room who could turn around to him and say, "That's it. You're overthinking it. No, you don't need another pass." Because one of the things I've lived by is an understanding that the perfection in recording lies in knowing which imperfections to keep. So as the song feels organic, real, genuine, natural. And I think Don's first solo record had vitality squeezed out of it by overthinking what he was doing. And obviously that's an aspect of an insecurity at that time.
And then also, I was pretty biased coming into this chat here with everyone because I was told that you're Don's roommate, and I'm thinking, he's a rock star, and you know how roommate life typically goes. And I shouldn't have been, but since Don has always been so kind to me, the few times that I met him, how you speak about how much of a wonderful human he is. Because you would think it'd be tough to kind of live in that situation with a rock star. So, could you elaborate on like what you mean, like the living situation, and how it might be the opposite of how I thought, like sex, drugs, rock and roll, but maybe he was more, kept to himself off the road and while not, doing the music stuff.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, what's that? Probably the quickest and maybe glib answer that I can give you, Kendall, is in some ways we were the odd couple. And the fact that we were living together was surprising, but it worked. And in terms of Dom's domestic life, I think he was a more charming gentleman to the girls he knew then than when he was on the road. That's not to say that Don wasn't. Girls found him attractive, okay? There were plenty of offers for him to have company. And yeah, we used to have a lot of fun in the houses that we lived in. What? Can you hear her?
Yeah.
What do you want? I checked your food. You've got food outside. Come sit up behind me. Come on. She likes to get on a chair behind me. When I first met Don, his life was mobile. He had most of his clothes in the trunk of his vehicle and didn't always have a settled home to go to. The very first day I met him, the receptionist at the place I was working asked if a friend of hers could come by and bring a record out, and would I consider it to put out independently. It had been released in Germany, and that was it. And as I'm looking out my window, this 1956 white Bentley pulls up. And immediately that has an impact on me. Who has the class to have a 56 Bentley to drive around in? That is awesome. And he strode in to the reception, straight past the receptionist into my office, pulled up a chair, put his feet on my desk, threw me a record, and the first words out of his mouth were, "I want you to do for me what you've done for Motley Crue," which was basically get them steered onto Elektra. I took the record, listened to it for a while, and had Don come in. And I said, "Listen, I can't sign you." And he looked stricken, apoplectic. "What do you mean you can't sign me? My record's at least as good as Motley Crue's, probably better." I said, "Yeah, I know. It's better production, better songwriting. It's a really good record, but I cannot sign you to this label." And he goes, "Why not?" And I looked at him, I said, "How old are you?" 30. "Exactly. If I sign you to this little independent label, you're going to spend the next 2 years tied to it, and you need to be on a major label right now. That's why I can't sign you to this label." I said, leave me a couple of copies of the record, I'll see what I can do. So obviously I went after Tom Sutout and said, got another one for you. And after about a month and a half, Tom was not going to make a move. So I sent a copy of Breaking the Chains to Cliff Bernstein, who didn't react immediately, but something like a week later, I get a call from Cliff, and he's in some record store up in Boston, an independent record store in Boston. And he's holding out the phone and saying, can you hear what I'm listening to? And I go, no, I can't. What are you listening to? It's that record you sent me, Have Don Call Me. And of course, once Cliff and Peter were on board, then Tom suddenly was excited about signing him to Elektra. Now, in terms of living together, we were both neat freaks. We both cleaned the bathroom. Our kitchen was immaculate all the time. It wasn't a sea of beer cans or garbage. We kept good house together. Does that answer your question, Kendall?
Yes, it does.
There you go.
Thank you.
See, there
But,
was no.
you know, and to this day, he's somebody I would call a friend who I care about, and we talk every now and then. I think the last time I spoke to him was about 3 weeks ago. I'm very concerned about the condition of his body. When we were at the Paramount premiere for, what was it called? Nothing But a Good Time documentary. He and I managed to get off into a corner by ourselves. And it was interesting because it seemed like everybody left us alone. And, you know, they were probably going, oh, they're talking about what they used to get up to in the jacuzzi 30 years ago. None of it. He had his phone out and he was showing me his x-rays of his feet and his hands and his back. And he is in a battered state and he needs to, he can't play guitar anymore, he can't hold it. He needs to go home and be the other person that he is, and that's a gardener, somebody who makes things grow. And he loves screwing around in gardens, but that's Don too. I mean, he helped me grow, he helped Great White grow, he's helped lots of bands grow. So he needs to go and be a gardener.
Agreed.
Nice.
So you brought that up, the condition of him. Do you know, how much do you know of that physical assault that he claims happened to him in Hawaii back in '91?
Don?
Yeah.
No, I don't know any details about that. The most recent details I have is that he was in his shower and somehow he managed to fall out of his shower and fuck his ankle up.
Yeah.
That's not true. The most recent thing is he smashed up his Maserati.
When did that happen?
About a month or two ago.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's like the last person I'd want to see in a car wreck right now is Don.
Right. But
Because
see, you
he's
saying that, that's the context of things, because he was probably close to a month ago, he was sitting down doing a gig and he looked really, really rough. Like you could tell that.
Yeah, sitting on the bar stool.
So this might be the reason.
he keeps telling me that he's basically done. I've got one more to do. I'll maybe do a whiskey because I started there, etc., etc. But I think he's finding it very hard to accept it's done.
Yeah.
But he's got a beautiful home and a beautiful garden around it. So come on, dude, just go and focus there.
I agree. See, a lot of people come at me sideways. I'm I advocate that I want to see him retire, but it's not. See, sometimes I say it in a tough love kind of way, but it really doesn't come from a place of malice. It comes from a place of being that I've been a fan of this guy my entire life. I don't want to see this guy out on stage suffering. He should be at home enjoying his life. So I can
Andrew,
agree.
Andrew, you are absolutely right. And this will make you laugh. In 1988, we got an offer to open for the Stones for their entire tour. And the first thing I thought was, oh, fuck, have I got to go and see these old men every night? You got it. 88, I thought, guys, maybe it's time, because I have my cherished memories of 1973. I even have board tapes of the Stones from 1983, and that's when they were totally incandescent and wonderful. And there's that thing of the personal thing of I don't want my memories compromised by seeing less than later.
That's it.
Yeah, and I mean, I was at breakfast 2 days ago. Somebody showed me at the breakfast table a film clip of somebody performing. And I looked at it and I went, oh my God,
No.
Granny's been at the vodka. She's stumbling all over the place. And then it was pointed out to me that the people who were watching this had paid $500 a ticket to see it.
Right.
And it was Stevie Nicks.
Oh.
I mean, the last thing I want to do is see Stevie Nicks stumbling around on a stage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what she was doing. And it's you don't want to compromise your memories.
Exactly.
Right. True. I think we've had that conversation about Don doing some mentoring probably to some younger musicians. That would be awesome to see, and production management, that kind of a thing.
I'm not sure about management, but I'm absolutely sure about production.
Right.
He could, if there is still a place and time for bands to develop in this music business, as it's so called still, he could certainly pass on a wealth of knowledge. Especially if he's not making records himself, because while somebody's still making their own records, there's that little concern that how much is this going to be Don impinged on a band that's coming up because he's still thinking in his own creative way. Definitely. But, where he lives, which is just north of Santa Fe, I don't think there's a lot of punk or young garage bands around there. I don't think he's got many options with that. But he'd be really good at that. Really good.
Yeah, and if he needs a driver for the Maserati, he just picks up the phone and calls Evil.
Oh,
and
calls
I'll head
you.
over there and we'll go for a cruise.
What do you want to? Next thing you know, you're going to want to be like his personal assistant, like Jason
Well, I'm
Green.
just saying, like these things that he's trying to do. Not me. I could call I'm sure Kendall, Andrew, any one of us would be like, "Hey, Don, you need someone to take you ride and get you here and do that and go." Even to play the gigs, he should have more help to get the things done that he needs done than he has. And I just think that, I think we all agree. Just if he's going to do what he's doing, it should be done with a bit more respect and a bit more concern for him and how it appears. I would say
Well, Evil, I hate to disappoint you, but I had a long rant at Don about get rid of the fucking Maserati wreck and get a big old truck.
Oh yeah.
Because if you're going to go out there with all the staples that you've got in your body, get into a vehicle that if you have a problem, it's not going to damage you excessively when you take on some tree north of Santa Fe. So hopefully next time I talk to him, the Maserati's gone and he's got a big old Chevy or a Ram.
Yes. a Silverado or something that can with some
Yeah.
4-wheel drive or something capable. A guy like him needs a Suburban. That's what you need. He has a Suburban. That's what he needs.
So I'm trying to wedge this in because I know I don't want to keep everybody forever. I mean, we've been chit-chatting with Alan for about an hour or whatever, but we do need to talk about 2025.
Raise your horns high, let's just